the coordinators for workshop 1 to come up to start with, and then we'll be asking Richard to come up for the second workshop, just to give the achievable goals or the outcomes that they think they can take from their sessions. We'll be breaking this down into Phil, and also Alex was going to report as well. Phil.
Great, thanks, Rodden. So yeah, we had a wide-ranging discussion and some presentations about acoustic monitoring, and I think people felt that there's a lot of potential in using acoustic monitoring across the Channel Islands. It's flexible. The recorders we have these days, you can record in ultrasound and sort of the normal hearing range, so you can monitor a range of different species at different times really very easily. So there are a couple of outcomes that came out. One was to do with seabirds. So Chris was suggesting a CI-wide network to monitor seabirds acoustically, particularly in respect to the fact we're getting a lot more new species turning up. So, for example, Balearic shearwaters, which are a critically endangered species, are now occurring in Channel Island waters in their thousands. So we Guernsey alone can hold 15% of the world population of Balearic shearwaters, and it would be very interesting to see if they're starting to come ashore. So Emily then suggested we perhaps action this through Ramsar, maybe through a network of the Channel Island Ramsar sites, and we could also use acoustic monitoring to monitor recovery programs as well. So, for example, rat eradication, Chris's fence, and eradication of rats and ferrets and all the other horrible things that are eating puffins. So that was one thing we suggested we could take forward, and we'll put somebody's name against that after this. And the second one was about insects and invasives. So we had a discussion about the Asian hornet. Could acoustic monitoring be used to identify Asian hornet? And we thought, yes, it probably could be. Bumblebees. So we have the Bumbler app, which helps you identify and record bumblebees. Could we actually record bumblebees and from the sound of the buzzing determine which species it is and use that as a monitoring tool? And Gordon's very interested in that for the pollination project, so we'll have a discussion about that. And then it was Emily again who came up with the idea of actually, should we be looking through the list of invasive species that could potentially occur here and say, okay, can we use acoustic monitoring to actually identify any of these species and determine whether they occur? Now that could be through something like the bat survey, it could be through seabird monitoring or whatever, but that could be a possibility. So that's something that could be done. I'll leave it there.
Great.
Of outcomes.
That's a lot. Alex.
Hello. So our group was talking about acoustics in the marine environment. One of the main things Francis reminded me of is that we don't have unlimited capacity in the team, so it's doing something that we can actually deliver, which is always annoying. So thanks, Francis. So yeah, with the fish intel receiver network being put around the Channel Islands, is an amazing first step, and we have actually started getting some data back from fish. But on the last download, the full array was out for 6 months, and we had one fish. So that means one fish that was tagged was picked up on the array. So the array works. There's just not much data coming in. And it was sort of widely agreed amongst everybody that we either need to widen the array to more offshore areas to look at different sorts of species and physically widen the array, but to also have some tagging going on within the Channel Islands. And as you know, some of these fish will be pretty localized. They will have migratory routes and they will be in certain areas around certain islands around every year. So to up the data, we really need to start tagging operations within the Channel Islands, which makes sense. It's sort of the natural movement. You set your array up first and then you move on to the tagging. But it's really expensive. The tags cost a lot. It's a lot of boat time. And we still need to keep the array serviced and working. So that was sort of the main thing, to work together as Channel Islands and seek funding as well, because there's no funding for this at the moment. But yeah, just move forward with it and everyone keep in communication and try and make something happen and put some funding towards it.
Great, thank you very much. Just a small goal. Richard.
Hello, I'd like to thank everybody who attended the workshop, both online and in present. We were talking about how to look at emergency response, and we came to the wonderful conclusion that talking to each other has got to be the best plan to begin with. So this meeting is actually a network of those people that need to talk to each other, or they know the people they need to talk to each other about any sort of emergency response. And so first of all, keep those contacts going, make a list and update that list as often as you can to make sure that when the balloon goes up, people that need to know have contact details of the people that actually give you sensible answers to difficult questions. We then talked about how we might produce a kind of template for a reaction or response to an emergency. And we are, what's the word, plagiarizing Julia from Guernsey's IIEM's report of earlier on, so thank you. We looked at those 3 stages of prevention. So an emergency response, you should be looking before the emergency begins of what are the risks that are out there and how do you prioritize them. Secondly, you need to be able to monitor those risks when they arise. What are the effects? What things are going to suffer? And thirdly, how are you going to react to those things? And depending on your power, influence, and your network, you should be able to then come to a sensible response for those things. We moved on to what other things need to be done, and obviously the other one is education. If you're going to undertake to do something very rapidly in response to something quite catastrophic, you need to tell people you're doing it in a very short space of time. So you need to understand what your comms might be in the quieter moments before any of this actually happens. You want to be able to react and know who your media outlets are, who your comms people are across the states, across the jurisdictions, to make sure you get a response. And please use the same response. It's no good Guernsey telling somebody to do something and Jersey telling you to do it a different way. I think it does need to be a uniform response, which may cause some feathers to ruffle, I'm not sure. And eventually, resources. Don't use science to get resources, just up the threat. And we had a politician in the room, I can't see him, who, without prompting, told us exactly how to approach politicians. He told me all about the Asian hornet. He didn't give a single bit of data. He just told me the threat to commerce, life, health, well-being, children. If you want your resources from politicians, you have to up the ante. And I think that that's important in emergency situations, is you have to tell people it's pointless telling everybody it's an emergency and we'll deal with it tomorrow. If it's an emergency, it's got to the top of your priority list and you have to act now. I'd like to thank everybody for their input. Thank you very much indeed.